lock up Michael Flynn for no reason because he offended the delicate sensibilities of the political establishment by working with Donald Trump. That's it. They used him as a weapon against Trump. They threatened his family, and Trump is pardoning him now. This is a political civil war. And that language came from Mother Jones.
Yeah.
They said the political civil war will carry on. When you have the Obama administration falsely targeting an acting national security advisor who was doing his job, targeting his family, and we saw it from the notes that got released. The FBI said, what's our goal here? To prosecute him or get him fired? The fact that they even questioned getting him fired proves that their intention was just to hurt Donald Trump's campaign.
Yes.
That's it.
Well,
or his administration.
Yeah, and with the underlying motivation of protecting themselves, right?
Yep.
Because Flynn was the one who knew where the skeletons were buried or which closets the skeletons were in, something like that. He knew where the bodies were. There we go.
Yeah.
He knew where the bodies were.
Probably literally and figuratively.
Yeah, 100%. And it definitely derailed things. And it also put Trump in a really bad position where he fired him, and then he looked bad. He didn't look loyal to his people, and he threw out sort of a dynamic guy who wanted to make change in the right way, who saw the world the right way, was part of the whole team that was supposed to make changes. And that was a huge fumble and a huge win, basically, for the Democrats there. And it just reminds me, actually, of why the presidential pardon exists in some cases. I mean, people had to believe that they would use the courts against your political, allies as a way to get to you. So, of course, people that support the president are going to be attacked. And this is a way to, maybe protect somebody in that regard. I'm not an expert on presidential pardons, so I'm just spitballing.
Yeah,
there.
it does seem weird that he pled guilty, then they tried dropping it, and it's like the case is already, did it already get to that point, where we at? But it's weird, you can pardon someone before they've been investigated or charged or something.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that. All I know is I wish that he would have done that sooner, brought him back into the fold.
He didn't want to rock the boat.
That's it. Who was advising this guy? If he would have pardoned Flynn, more people would have come out and supported him.
If Trump came out in the first debate when they said your last and final statement, I, Donald J. Trump, am going to completely legalize through executive order on my first day of re-election, January 21st, I will completely legalize cannabis nationwide and pardon all nonviolent drug offenders. If that was that last thing he said, he's 120 million votes.
I have been saying that since 2016. One of the survey questions in the survey I did for Democrats was deplorable. The last question, bonus question, do you think that cannabis should be decriminalized at the federal level? And it was 75% to 25% of Democrat to deplorable voters supported it. It would have been a huge win. I called for it. I even told all my contacts in the White House, I've been pushing for it. I mean, don't have the influence to get that done, but I tried. I tried because it's a civil liberties issue. It's a civil rights issue. It's a liberty issue. I mean, also it's just sane and smart. So
and it generates a lot of revenue through taxation. It would have been. It would defang a lot of the cartels, which it already has started to do. You know what's really crazy? The cartels are selling now.
Fentanyl?
I don't want to know. Is it getting worse?
Make a guess.
They're selling
so now
phenobarbital.
So now that pot is basically recreational in many different states.
Yeah.
You're wrong. It's way worse.
Way worse than that?
Yeah, avocados.
Oh,
no joke.
Whoa.
Avocados.
Really?
Yep.
Because
avocados are extremely in demand.
Lucrative.
Millennials love that avocado toast. I mean, avocados are pretty awesome. So they're shaking down avocado farms now. It's more money.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that 100% that those guys aren't dedicated to the art and the act of selling drugs. They're just trying to, if they knew a guy that bought bricks for 10 and they could sell bricks for 9, but they would do it that way. Maybe not in that order. But yeah, he could have done it. He didn't do it. There's a lot of things he could have done, didn't do. I don't know if I'm ready for the post-mortem, although I've been critical of him every time that he needed it, and I've been supportive when he has. I've never been one to come out and just throw MAGA red meat and say Donald Trump is the God savior and all that. He represented an opportunity for us, the network, to make change. And I think he was effective in some ways in that regard, and he certainly stalled some of the things that we wanted to stall and slow. But was he perfect? No. And, who knows?
The economic devastation that will come to this country in the next several months will be, I believe it's going to be...
COVID related, you mean?
Yeah. It's going to be unimaginable.
And the new administration.
Tim, you really think that the COVID situation is going to be worse now than it was in March?
based on the fact that people are already had their legs chopped off in March, and now they're coming for them again.
Oh, fiscally, you mean?
Yeah. So they're destroying ownership.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we got this. Let me pull the story. This story up. New COVID policing unit to launch in Maryland on Thanksgiving Eve. They're high visibility enforcement efforts. They're calling them like compliance units, state and local police to enforce compliance. We're literally at a point where the government, against the science, and even in some instances against the direction of the CDC, are destroying the economy. Here's what happens. Have you noticed the Dow Jones hit 30,000 points today?
I sure did.
Yeah, that's real good news for people with money in retirement or in their stocks. But younger people and people who are lower class just got cut off completely. Like we're at a point where you can see the stock market skyrocketing while businesses are collapsing. Wages are gone because the jobs are gone. So Joe Biden says, I'm going to trust the scientists on what we should do. And who's his advisor? Is Dr. Osterholm, who said, lock the whole country down for 6 weeks. Remember 15 days slow the spread turned into,
15 days.
10 months?
And the goal was just to ease the burden on the ICU so that we didn't have a bunch of secondary deaths because of capacity overloads. And one thing that I have noticed, it looks as though that the second wave in Europe isn't resulting in the same amount of deaths proportionately as the first go-round. It also looks like they might be peaking. I understand, but just in terms of the science and the data is going to show a more diminished effect, I think, this time.
And you know what they're going to say?
We have therapeutics and we have treatment and knowledge. And
they're going to say, oh, that's because the lockdown is working. We better double our efforts. In Greece, if you want to leave your house, you got to text the cops. Let them know why. In France, you got to have your papers.
Where is the rapid disposable test? If we could just...
Where's Antifa?
What do you mean?
The anti-fascists to say the government cannot come down and lock you in your home.
Right, exactly.
No, they're cheering for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Where'd they go? They'll protest some fat old Trump supporter waving a flag, but they turn a blind eye when the government comes and starts locking people in their houses.
LARPers with attitudes, for sure. But I think isn't a solution a rapid test that you can just take every day, or you can take it when you go somewhere. Just test all the time. This should be the
They're
thing
unreliable.
We should be focusing on.
Anything. I think what's going to end up happening is we've already saw it with I think it's pronounced Qantas or Qantas. I don't know. It's Q. The Australian airline. If you want to fly international, you got to get your vaccine. You got to have your approved vaccine status.
Wow.
And Ticketmaster announced they would list vaccine status on tickets if the organizers wanted it. So what's going to happen is people are going to be like, no one's forcing you to get the COVID vaccine.
But you can't do anything.
You can't go to the store because it's a private business.
Right. This is the same way that they really affected the, quote, lockdowns, is they just made it so that there was nowhere for you to go.
So I think everything we're seeing is the rich getting richer. Look, man, if you want to, if I had to buy a stock right now, I'd buy these pharmaceutical stocks, People got to get the vaccines. They're already saying they're going to put vaccine status on cards. China wants QR codes on your phone for the whole world because that's what they're doing. So, So guess what company's going to make a ton of money? I've seen V for Vendetta. You've seen V for Vendetta, right? Mm-hmm. The guys who worked at Lark Hill bought all the stock in the pharmaceutical company and then all became ridiculously wealthy. Yeah. And I'm not saying there's anything nefarious with the vaccine itself. I'm saying they've got a government mandate. These companies got Operation Warp Speed. And so these pharmaceutical companies are like, we got a guaranteed $2 billion contract. Invest in, that's money. Like the company's going to make money, guaranteed.
Definitely. Let's talk a little bit more. I'm not familiar with the details of Warp Speed. Are you? Because
only a little bit. Yeah. Like they basically offered up guaranteed contracts to the companies. So some got direct funding, and I think Pfizer got a guaranteed contract.
And did they like strip any of the regulations and approvals or make it streamlined or anything like that?
I can vaguely say I think so.
Because I was just having this...
I didn't go through the whole bill.
This realization today that really the FDA and the regulations and clinical trials and all that is what's standing in our way of ending all this. Ending the lockdown, ending the social isolation.
Well, I mean, we need the vaccine.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Did you watch Utopia?
Dude, I'm the one that told you to watch it.
I know, but did you watch the new one?
The new one. I did not watch
different.
the new one.
It is way different.
In the new one, there's a wealthy, biotech guy who wants to create a world with no racism or sexism or inequality. So he stages a fake pandemic so that they can ram through a vaccine without proper protocols. And then the vaccine actually just sterilizes people.
Right. Make people beg to take the vaccine,
Yep.
which is the thing that actually sterilizes them.
And then...
Have you seen the end yet?
I saw it.
No.
He fell asleep, I think.
But the idea was people would beg for it and not realize for 5 or 10 years
Right.
that the next generation... So now in D.C., there's a story you sent me.
Yeah.
They just approved, 10-3, approved, children can get vaccinated without the parents knowing.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So imagine this. Vaccines can have adverse reactions. That's a fact. The complications tend to be rare, but they do happen, especially if you've got, how many people live in D.C.?
700,000 in DC proper.
DC
like
proper.
3 million maybe. In
3 million. No, just in D.C. proper.
Just 700,000.
Well, actually, I guess if the kid lives outside of D.C. but goes to school in D.C., that could happen, right?
It could.
So then you've got a couple 100,000 kids maybe potential.
There's like 80,000 kids in the school district in the school system in DC.
So of this 80,000, there is possible complication that might arise.
Oh, for sure.
The mother's watching their kid convulse on the floor, screaming, "I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on." She calls 911 and they say, "Has your son been given any medication?" "No, he hasn't." "Okay." And then they give the kid a counterindicated medication, and the kid just explodes right in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Figuratively.
I mean, when I saw the headline for that article, I didn't think it was true. And
I watched the video.
Dude, when you sent me the link of the video timestamp for my DC City Council, like approving some bill like that, it made me laugh that you were paying that close attention to the DC Council, a bunch of jokers.
Well, when I saw that the story came out saying the DC City Council has voted, or they said they plan to finalize a vote allowing children to get as young as 11 get vaccinated without parental consent. I looked up the hearing, and I watched the video of them all voting on it.
10-3.
10-3.
Yeah, and it's not even just that it's without parental consent, but it is a legitimate conspiracy to keep parents uninformed, where the doctor can order the vaccine for the 11-year-old who has given their, quote, informed consent.
The 11-year-old.
Right. And then they bill the insurance company without notifying the parent. Yep. And then when the insurance company sends you a statement, they can leave out the description of benefits. So you have no idea what that service was. Yeah. So there's no paper trail, there's no anything. Yep. You're completely cut out.
When you go to the hospital, they ask you if you've taken any medications recently. And there's probably, they might tell the kid, like, here's what you should or shouldn't do after getting this vaccine. If the kid has some kind of complication and the mom doesn't know, the mom could do something very serious that could harm the child.
Yeah, or just the fact that how can you do that to my child? What troubles me is establishing some notion that an 11-year-old can give consent. Now, listen, Tim, you know that we know some people that trade in crazy theories, and we know that there's a universe out there for crazy theories. And there's one crazy theory that I've never given any credence to, which is that there's some sort of a future grooming of like pedophilia, right? Like making it okay for adults to have sex with kids, which is obviously the most disgusting thing you can think of. And I've always discounted. I've never paid attention to it. Sure, there's instances where children are molested, assaulted. It's a horrible, terrible thing. We must stop it. But when you start defining legally the fact that an 11-year-old can give informed consent, to where else can they give this level of consent at 11 years old? It's
Do you know that a very popular social media app they had these stickers that would say like New Year's and like Happy Day. And there was one of them that said, they put out a video. I think it was Snapchat. I could be wrong. It said, love knows no age.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible.
And people started saying, what do you mean? Like, it's not, maybe you're trying to say, like, if you're 50 and you're dating someone who's 20, it's still kind of weird, right. But, like, it's legal. But, like, you're going the wrong way with this one because that's not what people hear.
Exactly. And so when I brought this up to some of my friends and family about this new law in D.C., which luckily has only passed the council, it still needs mayoral execution, which is probably going to get. But then luckily in D.C., we don't have home rule for real. And so the final law gets approved by Congress. I've already started lobbying sympathetic congressmen as a way to get them.
Senate and?
No, it gets approved by the House.
They're going to approve it. It's Democrats.
True, but there are ways to do. I've seen independent, renegade, acting, isolated representatives in the House affect DC law because it was their pet issue. They find ways through amendments or whatever the case may be. So I started lobbying people because I can't let this happen. I tried to explain to my friends and family what it meant. and they read it, and then they come back with the most charitable, like, oh, well, maybe they didn't word it the right way, or that's not exactly
Optimism
what they
bias.
mean. Exactly right. It's the same thing when you send people to the old BLM website where it said that they wanted to disrupt the nuclear family and blah, blah, blah.
They got rid of that now.
I know they did. Yeah. I sent the guy that live streamed the Portland murder. I interviewed him for like an hour and a half, going through his tape back and forth. And at the end, trying to ask him, why are you doing this? He's like, my daughter's got me roped into it. Not roped into it, but she's teaching me about it, whatever. I was like, do you know what it says? You're a family man. You're a dad. You're the center of your family, and you're taking care of your kids, and you believe in the power of fatherhood and the nuclear family. Let's read what it says on Black Lives Matter website about disrupting the nuclear family. And he read it, and he was like, "No, they just probably had a bad editor." It's like people won't just read the plain language on the paper.
Look, man, the throne was seized a long time ago by this ideology. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because we had Hotep Jesus on.
Yeah, how was that?
He was great. And he was basically saying that Ian was a pessimist. And that Ian didn't trust in people. And that's why, it was interesting to say because Ian's usually much more optimistic. But the general idea is the people who are in positions of power, the political establishment, they think that people are better off being told what to do instead of being given the freedom to do it. Yeah. Michael Bloomberg is the perfect example when he said tax the poor. And I don't mean that hyperbolically. He literally gave a speech about taxing the poor being the right thing to do. He said, we need to tax the poor because they make terrible decisions. And if we have their money and make the decision for them, they'll be better off. To varying degrees, I understand what he's trying to say. I can agree in some capacity. The problem is the bigger picture is a decentralized network deciding for itself will be infinitely smarter and faster moving and better than a command economy.
Yeah.
I'm much more in favor. I'm in favor of a mixed economy. Like, we definitely need a government that can say, hey, whoa, wow, that was a really bad thing we did. The market's going crazy. We need to figure this out before everything goes nuts. But I'm not a laissez-faire capitalist, but I also don't think a command economy with one person dictating what you should or shouldn't do makes sense. These people do. So Bloomberg passes the tax on sugary drinks. It's like, no, dude, you need a cultural shift to get people to do better. You can't just mandate you can't drink soda. You know what I mean?
Right.
You figure out the right way to get people I don't know. It's got to be a cultural shift. It's got to be based upon giving people the choice to do the right thing. Taxing things,
but giving people the choice to do, quote, the right thing, but comes with the acceptance that people are going to do the wrong thing.
Yep.
And being prepared for that and being willing to live with those consequences.
Are you an optimist or a pessimist? An optimist would say, I think that in a long enough period of time, humans have the house advantage, 51-49. So the way a casino works is they don't care if you win. They love it when you win. Good. It's marketing for them. They want you to cheer, and so everyone hears you winning, and then makes them gamble more. Because in a long enough time frame, the house always wins because their edge is, over a point. That's the same thing in terms of, that's how I view giving people free choice. We've proven consistently that on a long enough time frame, humans tend towards succeeding. Very well, actually. And these people don't believe it. These people think humans don't have the edge and need to be constrained, and that has led to disaster every time it's been tried. Yeah. Every single time.
Yeah, one thing that works just as well as success being rewarded is failure being consequences for failure, right? Yep. So people make dumb decisions. They don't have to make dumb decisions for very long, unless, of course, we're all going to socialize their their bad decisions, which is when you get into that hybrid space where you give people the freedom to do what they want. Then when they make the bad decision, then you have to pick them up and take care of them. I remember my dad used to describe to me welfare. He's like, son, do you want the people banging on your door looking for bread? Or you want to just give it to them? Like, oh, it's not a bad thought. With that being the assumption that there was always going to be people looking for bread, right?
Yep. The way I put it is, they say, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man a fish, you feed him for the rest of his life. Well, the left often says, you can't lift yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't have any boots. And I'm like, yeah, it's really simple. You teach a guy to fish, hand him a fishing rod, and say, have at it. And that's the end of it. Yeah. Give them the means to do the fishing. So there's certain things. So that's why I'm, left-leaning in certain, I'm independent, left-leaning a bit. Because, we'll take a person, they're struggling, teach them to fish, give them the fishing rod. We can't take care of you forever, but we can do our best to help you out. I've gotten unemployment benefits when I was in my 20s, and it saved my life, kept me from being homeless. Yeah. So I think these can be good things. The problem is when people get addicted to them, and it's just easier to stay on than to get off.
Yeah.
And so now what we're seeing with the COVID lockdowns is that instead of figuring out a way to survive, a lot of people are just screaming for the government to print more money. And that's literally calling for the destruction of your economy. And they don't care. It's just people screaming to extract more from the machine.
It's not. They don't care. 99% of people in America can't even point out where Washington, D.C. is on the map, much less understand the long-term ramifications of increasing the money supply,
Right.
So who knows, right? But maybe we're facing a huge demand shortage, so deflation is our biggest enemy. I don't know. I did just see the house prices in D.C. are going up. There's a huge spike in real estate activity. So I
think the rich are going to have it's the greatest thing in the world, man. If you're rich, think about what this means. They're going to decimate the economy with the lockdown, and then you can go buy all that property up. Two things happen. For one, the interest rates are in the gutter because they're like, oh no, the economy, the interest rates, drop everything down. And so you can buy up all this property and get a great rate. And the property value is tanking in a lot of places, especially New York. And then what happens when they're like, we've just deployed the vaccine, and the property values skyrocket back up again? The economy collapses, the rich people buy everything up, and then it comes back, and now they control everything. Yeah. And it comes and goes in waves. They keep doing it. So poor people lose everything. They're struggling, begging for help, and the rich are getting richer. Bezos' net worth skyrocketing, Amazon's value skyrocketing, all these big companies, all their revenue, everything's skyrocketing because they locked down small business. It's,
people are fighting back. I saw a little bit. I saw like a burger shop who was defying the codes and doing GoFundMes for the fees, for the fines.
Yeah.
And I saw another gym owner who refused at the rate of $15,000 fines.
Yeah, he tore it up, I think, right?
Yeah. We need more of that. And I recommend action like that where you're directly, if you're going to protest, confronting the rule enforcer or the rule maker that is legitimately authorized by the government. Don't put your local hostess at the restaurant in a hard spot by refusing to wear a mask or not complying. Don't be that jerk. It's not her decision, dude. Just make her life easier. It sucks for her too,
I understand wearing masks. I understand wearing masks when you're going shopping. I don't understand masks when you go to a restaurant and you walk in and they say right this way and then they sit you down and you take your mask right off.
Well, dude, now in D.C., the restaurants are like, you have to have your mask on the whole time. The whole time you're not eating. Anytime the wait staff approaches the table, you must put your mask on. And I went out the other night and I'm eating and I've got the cloth napkin. It's like a really thick, nice white napkin. And they come up with the next drink and they just kind of stand there and they wait sheepishly from 6 feet away. And I went like this. Instead of putting a mask on, I just went like this with the napkin, and then the guy's like, "That's not how you do it. That doesn't work." He goes, "It's dirty." I'm like, "What do you mean it's dirty? Just like the masks, it's all dirty. Everything's dirty." He's like, "You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong." And my girlfriend told me, these people think that they're risking their lives.
They do. They've been lied to.
They're risking their lives by doing this service for you, and that they're at risk of dying if the difference between me putting up a cloth napkin versus a cloth face mask is making people insane. It makes me not want to go out. It makes me not.
How do you hang out with people like that? I don't know anybody who's like that.
You don't, because they don't come here.
I know they exist. I've talked to them, but my circle of friends and family, they just don't. They're just not like that.
Yeah.
You see that funny meme? It says it's like normal people, and it's a guy wearing that gigantic. It's a gigantic thing you put over your head. And it's got a vent that pulls air in. It's like a clear front and a big... And he's
like you're going underwater.
It says it's like normal people, and then under it says conspiracy theorists, and it's people smiling and having turkey and Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, actually, I can pull it up, because I think Mike Cernovich...
Oh, we have the meme?
Yeah.
1 second to find the meme.
Isn't that the thing? The conspiracy theorists are the ones who want to have school open and the ones who want to have Thanksgiving and travel and get back to work and open up the economy. Tim, if you were an 85-year-old grandmother with 12 grandchildren all in grade school right now, and you thought yourself you had 2 or 3 years left of life, would you demand that your grandchildren be deprived of their senior prom and their last varsity year of sports and hang out with their friends so that you can live out 1 or 2 extra years of your life?
No.
Of course not. No one would. No grandmother would. Why don't we let the grandparents decide on the lockdown?
You got to see this thing here. This is the meme. Normal people. Look at this thing this guy's wearing. Like, okay,
Jack can't see it at all.
So normal people aren't really wearing these things. This is like a weird marketing thing people are trying to do. But then conspiracy theorists, it's like grandma like giving the turkey and grandpa's
like
smiling, everyone's clapping and happy, and yeah, man, people
they tell you what they accuse you of what they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's basically the
and it's working. And so, if the Republicans are sitting there with their feet up, smoking cigars, being like, "Dude, I don't want to be involved. I'm just happy to get paid," and so you've got one side. When we had Hotep Jesus on, he was talking bad about the Democrats. And I was like, we do that. We smack talk Democrats all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, well, what do you think about Republicans? And he said something like, I don't know that the Republicans are doing anything that I could actually complain, actually talk about at all. Like, what do they do? And I'm like, they don't do anything. They're literally just sitting around, pretending to fight, I guess. How many hearings have they had on big tech censorship and done nothing about it?
Oh, those Republicans. Yes.
Yeah,
those
yeah.
Republicans.
Oh, I don't mean the people.
Yes, okay.
No,
yes.
I mean the politicians.
Yeah. No, they're
I know what the
trash.
Democratic politicians are doing.
Trash.
But the Republican politicians are like, we're fighting for you. And then they sit down and
we hate
crack
them
a
all.
cigar
We hate them all. The MAGA movement has no respect for the GOP. We hope it dies and disintegrates and blasts into a million, billion, trillion pieces. And we can truly point the finger at them as the limiting factor in many ways in Trump's success. So no love lost there. I was never a Republican. The book isn't Democrat to Republican.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
It's Democrat to deplorable.
You should write a new one called Deplorable to Ugly Chumps.
Ugly chumps.
That's what Biden called them. He called them ugly chumps.
I'm an ugly chump. I bet I could be Biden in the push-up contest.
Yeah, you sure could.
Yeah, you probably could.
Let's do it.
Did you know that Biden gave a speech today or something?
Nope.
Nobody did.
Politics? Forget about politics, Tim.
I'm gonna start making some skate videos.
Do it. I want to know. First of all, I think that you should lay down 7 more tracks and put out an album. I think that first song that I heard blew my mind. No offense. Exceeded all my expectations. The video was fantastic. You can play and sing, and it's on point. And we need art. We need art like that. We need videos and movies and books and literature and music videos. So, Tim, you should do that. I've often wondered, coming up here so many times, what's like 10 times I've been up here?
Yeah.
And I wonder, where are you going to go, Tim? You're younger than me. You're 13, 14 years younger than me, probably.
How old are you?
I'm 45.
I'm 34.
34. Okay, 11 years younger than me. You've got this whole YouTube empire built. You're doing great. You're fulfilled. And I'm wondering, where are you going to go? What are you going to do next? And it sounds like you're starting to make some moves, man. You're scaling back just a little bit. Scaling back just a little bit. And going to start doing some other projects.
Oh, not scaling up, scaling back. Actually,
on the videos.
But we're going to be right. So, I mean, maybe we'll see what happens. I've taken, I think the day after, it was the Sunday after the election. I took the day off, like for the first literal. I'm taking a day off. I've never done that before. The only times I've ever had off is because I lost my voice or I had to get like a tooth, fixed or something, and so I had no choice but to take a day off. This was literally me being like, I'm gonna go ride my bike, and then I rode my bike 32 miles, and people were like, "That's not a day off, dude. It's like you rode your bike 32 miles."
That's awesome.
It was
of course
intense.
It's a day off.
No, it was brutal. I was like, after like 20 miles, I had 12 left. I just kind of like my brain shut off because I couldn't stop. I'm in the middle of the woods. There's nothing you can do. You can't call anybody. You can't get a ride. It's like you either get on your bike and you finish the 12 miles, or you just sit in the woods forever.
That's awesome, man.
So it was like my legs felt like it was a weird feeling, but it felt like I was ripping them to shreds.
Tim, that's amazing, and I want all of you guys out there listening to this to take note. Get outside. Exercise, get your heart rate going.
COVID, bro. COVID. You can't
Look
go
at
outside anymore.
trees. When was the last time you guys saw a freaking tree, man?
Listen to birds.
Get out there. You got to get out there for your sanity and to connect with nature and reset yourself. Well, so I'm happy to hear that. So I want to know more, though. We're going
to start doing events. I don't know what's going to happen because the lockdown stuff is getting crazy. But we're probably going to do, right now, within the guidelines, like, we can have events. We don't have 100 people. We just have maybe 20 people, which is apparently fine. But we're also in the middle of nowhere, so no one's coming out here. But the goal is to just do some events and start filming videos, and the vlog channel is going to be more just fun and shenanigans, I guess.
Good.
Just to it's a combination of, for one, things are going to start. It depends on what happens, I guess. If all hell breaks loose in the next month or so. The reason why I do political commentary is because there's too much to talk about. There's
Right.
just so much going on all the time.
Right.
But I also think it's expanding the business. I can only do so much as an individual, and if I'm going to create different, verticals, different, genre content channels. So the vlog channel was planned a long time ago. This channel we're on right now was originally the vlog, but then COVID happened.
I see.
So I was like, I couldn't find the vlogger. It was too hard to do. COVID happened, so we're like, we'll just do a talk show, I guess. Now it's like, okay, now we got to get the vlog going. Talk show's relatively easy to do because we've been hearing the news all day. We sit down, we have a conversation.
You have great guests.
The best guests.
The 6 segments I do on my other channels, Timcast and Timcast News, those are a lot harder to produce.
Yeah.
So I don't script anything, but it is reading for hours, nonstop, in the morning, all day, all night, constantly just pulling things up, and doable, but it's intense.
Yeah. You have amazing retention.
I remember everything. It's just, yeah.
I like it. Sometimes when I'm riffing on just bigger picture issues, you stop in, you're like, well, no, and then there's this process, and then this thing, and that thing, and that thing. I'm like, sweet.
I read
That's exactly what I need.
hundreds of articles a day, probably.
Yeah.
And so the reason why you get into this groove where I read everything, so it's like when I see a story and they say, Donald Trump declares X, I say, oh, wow, because he declared Y back then, which means this, and then you can pull that stuff up. I do think it's funny when I see, like, I'll notice something, and there's oftentimes, as much as the left won't admit, they hate admitting it, or they don't actually watch my content, there's a lot of stuff that I report that's fairly original, and then I see it pop up and a bunch of people start saying similar things, and then, becomes a meme or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but at a certain point, it's like political commentary, I feel like, is just one direction that has its cap, and if I'm going to expand the business and do more, that means I got to lead the charge.
Yep.
So that's been one of the biggest challenges. There's no, what do they call it, like a turnkey business, where it's like you click the button, walk away, and the business makes money.
Yeah.
It doesn't work in this industry.
Or any.
Like the idea is, I was watching a King of the Hill episode where, Khan buys a car wash.
Yeah.
A turnkey business. You set it up, people go there, they put the money in the machine, they use the car wash, they leave.
Yeah.
And then you come back, every night, and you pick up the money, and then you go deposit in the bank.
And repair the machines and pay the insurance.
Right. But you're not there managing on a day-to-day basis.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just sort of a myth, this idea that there's a business that runs itself. Passive income isn't hardly passive at all, and you definitely need to lead the charge. Expand.
Right.
Expand. I mean, do you think that there's a social or emotional toll on focusing on the conflict and chaos and politics all the time? Does it get to you ever?
No, I've been focused on it my entire life.
Yeah.
Because because I was 14, 9/11 happens.
Yeah.
Then we get all the war stuff, all of the music videos, all the celebrities, everything they're screaming in my face. Barack Obama comes around, we're going to end these wars. I vote for him, and he lied to me. So it was endless. It was endless. So I started working for nonprofits.
Yeah.
And then it was literally endless. I'll tell you what, man, I worked for a nonprofit in California, and it was when the Deepwater Horizon thing happened, when the oil spill happened in the Gulf.
Yeah.
And they gave us this fact sheet. So I'm waving to people, and I was like, hey, we got a serious disaster. Did you hear what happened in the Gulf? Like, Deepwater Horizon erupted. We're trying to get funding for awareness. We need support. And people would be like, wow, I didn't know that. And we had pictures and everything. And then one day, I wave to a guy, and I say, here's what's happening. Here's how much is spilled. And he goes, that's not true. And I was like, what? And he goes, that's not true. It hasn't spilled that much. The actual amount spilled is like, it's like 10 times less. And I was like, oh. And he's like, why are you lying to me? And I was like, this is what they gave me. Like, yeah, why did they give you lies? And then I got really angry. Called up my boss right away and said, yo, some guy just told me I was lying. I just looked it up. This isn't true. Like, you told us to go out and raise money. This is not true. And he goes, yeah, well, just keep using it. And I was like, well, you're asking me to commit fraud? Like, to knowingly lie to someone to get them to give me money? I'm not doing that. They fired me.
Good for you, Tim.
Well, I mean, I can't. I'm not going to go to jail for this. Like, I know I'm lying to you, but give me your money anyway.
Yeah, people lie and get money all the time without going to jail. So good on you. There's been a vigilante in you forever, I imagine. Well,
so that was I worked for nonprofits, and then eventually I was like, these companies, they're just companies. The nonprofits, they're companies. They have a bottom line. They want to make money. And there's like you know what I learned? The real nonprofits, the real charities are the small ones, where it's like a dude who picks up a bunch of hot meals and drives them around himself to it's like a church. They drive around hot meals to people who are hungry and to the elderly. Those are the real charities. Then you see all these like TV charities and these big brand charities. Look at Joe Biden's charity, right? They gave zero towards cancer research. It was a foundation supposed to give out grants. They gave like nothing. It was all salaries, like just like big 6-figure salaries. I'm not gonna make any accusations, but let me tell you something. If you get dirty money, if you need to take some dirty money, you start a charity, right? If you got to pay out dirty money, you hire people you know for that charity. You pay them a salary, and then once it runs out, you shut it down.
Exactly right.
Cleaned.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what he did. I'm just saying,
It's easy to do, and it happens all the time, and there's all kinds of nonprofits like that operating in Washington, D.C., and, people get paid and they pay taxes, but it's tax deductible for the donors, which makes it a nice thing for them. It's better than paying someone directly. It's not tax, so it's tax advantaged. It's all a game, Tim. All of it is a game. I teach my son at a very young age. He learned to ask, who's getting paid? Where is the money going?
What does Alex Jones always say? Is it Key Bono?
Key Bono?
Yeah, it's like a...
Who benefits?
Who benefits. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So even my son at like 8 and 9 was like, somebody somewhere is getting paid.
Yeah.
True.
And someone's finding something from this. Yeah. So when it comes to the political commentary stuff, it's like I'm doing more than anybody else. This show is the most fun out of any of the commentary I do.
Yeah.
So it's like as long as we keep booking people and keep doing stuff like this, it's a lot less stressful. It's a lot more fun and engaging.
Yeah.
And it requires me to I'm not as so much time is consumed on my other show, which is an hour and 45 minutes a day of political commentary and various news stories, and that's a lot harder to produce and it's tough. But
it's funny. I do the opposite. So for me, coming here, you're right. Easy to not have to prepare a whole lot. For my interview show, I spend probably 10 hours preparing for each interview. Read their latest book, read their latest commentary, be up to speed, and go slow and get into it. And I wish I could put out 2 or 3 of those a week, but I can only do them in bursts, 8 and 10 at a time over 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'm just exhausted because it's so much work. I love it, though, not complaining.
So here's the other thing. When I was covering stuff on the ground, I would walk 10 miles, 20 miles a day in some instances.
Yeah.
It was great. I was doing parkour, no joke.
Yeah.
During Occupy Wall Street, what made me effective in live streaming was that I could run through a packed crowd. You get a packed crowd of 1,000 protesters in the street, and I could move through it as if there was no one there because I was jumping left to right, crouching, going under people's arms and stuff, and then finding those spaces, jumping over things. And then you spend so much time the past couple of years just sitting in a chair all day, every day. I'm trying to skate as much as possible, but man, it just feels bad. I've been extremely physically active my whole life, skateboarding since I was younger, and so I used to skate 8 hours a day, just endlessly, just gaunt and covered in sweat, not able to eat. I used to eat a ridiculous amount, 10,000 calories a day, just to keep up with skating. That's how intense it was. Now I'm sitting in a chair and it's this is awful. It's too much. But the problem is I can't even go to the DMV to get my license updated because I work literally until 4:30 from the morning, and then I eat, get some exercise, and then prepare for this show. And I'm that's untenable at a certain point.
Yeah.
It worked out for the past 2 years because we had the midterms until the 2020 election. But now I'm you mentioned that music video, right? I wrote that song. I wrote the story. The music video, everything it's based on, I executive produced it. So basically, the animation directors, the animators in the studio who put it together, they did a bunch of brilliant stuff, like the color changes. Each different political faction has a different color. But basically, they'd send it back to me and say, here's what we need to do, here's what we need to do. So one of the things we did was they added something that's really interesting. At one point at the last verse, there's a sign on the TV that says, don't trust the wolf. Mm-hmm. Something they just added. Mm-hmm. And then I said, make the kid holding a stuffed wolf animal under the bed. So now it's
Nice.
Nice. And so basically, I came to them with a story. I dictated it. They Nishiro recorded me telling the story of what the song is going to be, basically what it is, and then I performed it, wrote the lyrics, and then helped produce the video. There's a ton of other ideas I have for a bunch of really great short films and documentary stuff that I've never been able to produce. So at a certain point, if I want to actually expand, I have to stop hyper-focusing in one area, pull back, and then dedicate more time in another area.
Yeah.
So if I do only 2 of these segments a day instead of 6,
that'd be great.
I would be doing, my show would be cut down to about My main podcast would be about 50 minutes, 50 to 55 minutes, and down from an hour and 45. This show would be exactly the same, but that means I could finish up way earlier, and that means I can spend more time shooting the vlog content, selling merch, making cool stuff, playing with lasers and gadgets. Also, though, hiring people to do documentary films, like doing legit long-form documentary stuff, real impactful stuff, sending out a crew to go and cover a big political issue and giving them like a decent budget and stuff, that requires oversight. So that's kind of the part of the plan.
Moving into management, Tim.
I mean, to a degree, yeah. So it's like, I mean, it's
that's what happens.
Well, it's not that it's what it happens. It's like, man, it's just like I'm at this point where if I just do the exact same thing I do every day, 6 segments, then this show, that's the plateau. How do you expand beyond that? You can't.
You can't.
If I'm the person who's physically doing it all, I can't hire someone to do commentary for me. I can't be like, hey, you talk fast. Here, come sit here and record the segment for me. I'm going to leave. I can create a channel where we have a variety of hosts who do certain things. So there's definitely plans for more content, but that means I have to free up some of the time throughout the day to bring on more people to do more stuff.
Yeah.
And so part of it is I'm going to have more time to, for one, exercise, skate, but we're going to film that and we're going to use that for a brand and merchandise and just having fun. And then at the same time, that's, I could still theoretically do all that right now because I have that about hour every day. But then I want to do, like that music video, need time to record music.
Yeah.
More importantly, though, I got some really great ideas for short films. And documentaries.
You got to expand your creative horizons and make time.
We gotta launch the. So here's what I've